uh, sole proprietorship, right? Private enterprise, very small group, small companies. You may start with this private enterprise. And then other types of organization, companies, partnership, like limited partnership and general partnership. So that is another types of organization. And the last types of organization is what I call cooperation, stock cooperation or private companies. So say stock companies are company in the stock market, and private companies are kind of a company, stock company, but not really on the stock market. So yeah, so this chapter is not actually in our textbook, so I will give you the scanned copies of this one. So today, so. But the point here is that you have to make sure what's the advantage of having, say, cooperation, private enterprise or stock company, right? Private enterprise or private company and stock companies. Especially, you should not ignore the advantage and strength of stock companies, right? Unlike all other company types, stock company does have only limited responsibility of the stock company members, what I call shareholders. So you would be only responsible for only up to what you have invested. So simply say, no matter what happened to your business, that is the amount that you have invested is your responsibility. Right? So other than losing your invested amount, you won't really be responsible any more than that. So that may be the power, strengths of cooperation, stock cooperation. So because of that advantage, a lot of because of that advantage, some people say that civilization sometimes our living were able to develop very fast, right? So because of that limited responsibility of the cooperation can do actually a lot many things. Because shareholders, the participants in that organization only have a limited responsibility. So kind of without worrying lots of risk, they can do whatever they can do. So because of that power, mass production were possible, right? Research and development, faster way was possible. So that's why our civilization recently, like after 19th century or 20th century, were rapidly grown. So just make sure that what are the advantages of stock companies. However, some people there are disadvantage of these stock companies, right? Somebody may abuse or manipulating that limited responsibility, right? So a lot of problem actually caused by that limited responsibility. We talked a lot about like business and ethics issues in our last sessions. Global big firms, especially global stock market listed firms, are actually did a lot of unethical behavior by, say, providing wrong financial reports, exaggerating their profits, not revealing really important information about the firm to the society, shareholders, and so on. So, so that's why a lot of unethical actually business performance actually done by many global firms, especially stock firms. So that's why this day a lot of, say, monitoring, censoring actually jobs is actually went to the global firms' performance, right? You be responsible, but in very limited way. However, on the other hand, stock companies are given with a lot more ethical responsibility, right? So that's how try to overcome the limit of stock company this day, right? So having said that, just make sure that these are some of the advantage and disadvantage of corporations. Just here, the corporation you may consider as a stock companies. Advantages, as I mentioned, you have only limited, the shareholders, limited responsibility, and we say that you can sell by shares. That means that unlike in partnership, you can easily in and out of the companies. If you want to leave the company, you can leave the company by selling the stocks, or you can join the company by buying the share of the stock. So easy of transferring the ownership. So that may be a huge advantage. And unlike other types of firm, corporation is another entity. Consider this corporation as like a separate entity, like another human beings. So in private company, for instance, like private enterprise, proprietorship, 사기업, the company itself is you, right? So if you die, then the company disappear. So you and the private company are exactly identical to each other. However, in cooperation, even if you die, that doesn't mean that the company die away. I mean, if you simply say that if you are the shareholder of the Samsung Electronics, for instance, if you just die, that doesn't mean the Samsung Electronics die, right? So the company exists there by itself, themselves, and you as an owner exist there by yourself. So it is quite separate one. So that means company theoretically can live forever as far as it generates profit. So that's why we have like global firms that live like more than 200 years or years. Like in Europe, for instance, like Johnson & Johnson in USA, for instance, the company does have history of more than, say, 200 years. So as far as you make profit, the company actually live forever. So that's why, that's what I meant here, like unlimited life. Tax deduction, forget about. Just forget about tax issue because a lot of countries actually nowadays varying their taxing scheme to the corporations. Like Germany, for instance, the corporate tax used to be the one of the highest country, almost like 40%. So 40% of your profit goes to tax, which is very high. Like UK, like 23%, relatively low tax. Korea, 24%, about same tax rate, UK, Korea. Like Ireland, on the other hand, like 12%, very low tax. So that's why, like by having very low tax in Ireland, that's the way how they attract a lot of international companies there. Wide variation about the tax. So not really tax deduction here. On the other hand, however, if you are successfully set up corporation in the stock market, the best advantage for you is that you can attract a lot more money. As I told you, like running company is like riding a bicycle. You have to keep accelerating your pedals all the times. If you stop, then you just fell down. So that means accelerating pedal means that you just continuously need money to run your business, and your own profit is not certainly enough. That's not pretty much enough. Like profitability is actually the amount you earn money, right? So simply say every company does have their own profitability, right? Like very successful and profitable companies like, say, Apple in mid-80s, I mean mid-20s, somewhere in year 2004 or 5, the Apple was the most profitable company in the world at the time. And imagine what would be the profitability of those of the Apple at the time. Like if you say invest 100, and like profitability of Apple at the time was about like 30%, 29 to 30%. So you invest 100 and you actually get at the end 30%, 30 from it. So 30% of profitability is extremely high, good, superb, right? But that's quite rare case. Hyundai Motor, now the company is now strike, right? Every factory there stopped. Like Hyundai Motor case, their profitability on average like 7 to 8%. Not really bad, but not really brilliant. So that means they get 7 or 8 out of their 100 investment. So that's quite like not bad, not good, but not really bad. So the point is that profitability, that money you actually earn is not really good enough for you to run your business continuously. You need investment every year. You need to buy, build factory and so on. So you need money all the time. So if you set up cooperation, very good chance to raise a lot of money from new investors, from financial institutions, and so on. So we are going to talk about this one in finance class session at the end of the semester. So the major, anyway, the strengths is of the cooperation is you can actually attract a lot of money from a lot of institutions, shareholders, and so on. However, a lot of also, on the other hand, you have to, the disadvantage you have to manage. Since stock companies are public companies, right? So public companies means that you are open to all the people. So anyone can join your firms. Anyone can leave your firms, which means that your firms are widely open. So that means your performance, your conduct, your way of doing business should be transparent all the times. So people outside should clearly understand what you are doing, what you plan to do, and so on. So that for doing that, governments intervene a lot. Ask you to report a correct financial statement, how you made money, where you are going to use money in the future, how the ownership changed, and so on. So the government actually asks you to do a lot of things, kind of must do things to you. So you have to do it without exception. So that may be also, that may actually bother your firm's operation. However, you have to follow what government asks you to do because you are public companies. And another disadvantage is that running, of course, is your firms as a public way is sometimes quite going without any cost. It may take cost and very complicated, right? Just imagine that you have to meet all requirements from lots of stakeholders. We know what stakeholders are. So meeting those different needs from lots of different stakeholders are not really easy task. And double taxation means simply say that the company earned profit and pay tax. That's quite fair. Because company itself is like human, so if the company, human, make the money, then pay tax. But the thing is that profit also should go to the shareholders. And the shareholders should also pay tax. So that's why, what I mean by here, a double taxation, you have to pay the tax twice. The company pay tax, and the shareholders also pay tax if they earn some profit from the firm. So read carefully about the lot of details if I send you today the chapter about the types of companies. So the point here, since we are studying the business and management fundamentals, so make sure to understand correctly what is especially advantage and disadvantage of the stock companies. So that's why when you actually set up companies, especially the stock companies, you should form a very good article of incorporation. Like some people call this a 정관, right? So like kind of rules and disciplines the company should follow all the times, right? So kind of a law of the firms, right? So the shareholders all together decide this kind of article of incorporation. So article of incorporation actually contain all this kind of information here: name, what's the goal, what kind of how many stocks are actually you are going to issue, and we were studying like stocks are not the same. Some stocks does have a voting power. Some stocks does not have any voting powers, only getting profits. So you have to define how many stocks in with voting power and how many stocks without voting power but getting share profit only. So a lot of details you have to actually determine in the article of incorporations, which also agreed all by the shareholders, especially board of directors members actually decide this one on behalf of the all shareholders. So pretty much running cooperation is not really easy because you have to look at corporate law, which are keep revising, modifying all the times often. So in order to understand very detailed, you have to have consultation with your, sometimes lawyer and accountant and so on. But just briefly understand how corporations are formed, what's the power of the corporation, but on the other hand, what's the limit of the corporations. So today we are going to going on the other hand to talk about management theories. So simply we are going to talk about, what is management, what is theory, what is management theory, and how business and management theories actually created, developed, and advanced, and where we are now. So that is actually pretty much we are going to talk about today and Thursday. When we say theory, what is theory? Probably, have you heard, what is theory? What is the theory that you familiar with or you like a lot about? What is theory in your opinion? Yeah.
Theory of life.
Theory of life, what is it?
Theory of the beginning of the universe.
Theory of
Big Bang.
Big Bang. Why universe created, right? Just exactly, you just made a right point. When we say theory, theory contains several factors, right? Several phenomena. So theory should contain first what things happen, right? So something happened out there. A lot of things happen. So the theory should point out something very interesting event or occurrence, whatever things, something happened. So the theory should define something happened out there, and then should explain why that thing happened. And then the theory should explain what are the causal relationship of that happening. What thing actually become the factor to create that kind of an event, right? So theory simply sounds like very academic, but simply theory means something happened, why that happened, and what actually caused them happen. So that is actually all theory should contain, right? So what happened, what factor caused them happen, and how that factors are forming causal relationships. The causal relationship is very important. So what make that happen? So if you prove what that factors make that happen, and if that proof is, if that causal relationships are proven in, say, scientific way and approved by other, say, scholars and researchers, then we can finally say theory. If that story is not really proven, then we call them a hypothesis, right? So having said that, management theory, so every theory does have its own question is that, right? So like, what theory was it? Universe theory, what was that?
The Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang theory. So the fundamental question of that Big Bang theory is that why universe is created. I just don't know anything about Big Bang. I think the Big Bang is like a pop group in Korea, like some bang here. What is that? So Big Bang is like why universe is created, right? So that is actually fundamental question in that Big Bang theory. So management, when you say management theory, the fundamental question in that theory is how, simply say, company can perform better. That is pretty much a fundamental questions, right? A lot of questions actually raised by management scholars, practitioners, and so on. But fundamentally, only one question people try to figure out: how company or organization can perform better. So here, perform better means what? What? Excel, yeah. In terms of what?
Profit.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so how company can perform better? Simply say, in plain terminology, how company can generate more profits. That's pretty much fundamental questions. And thousands of management theories out there try to argue a lot of different things from different perspectives using different, say, lenses. However, those theories fundamentally try to answer these fundamental questions. By doing or that way, company can perform better. So that's pretty much management theories. So still today, a lot of management theories are keep delivered from like newspaper, academic paper, books, and so on. So 100,000 management theories are actually in the market. So, however, what we are going to talk about today is, even though in the middle of that many thousand management theories, still we can find some of the very key management theories, right? 1,000 theories actually built based on that key 6 management theories. So those key 6 core theories that we are going to talk about. So pretty much, again, yeah, you should do this one or do that one to make your firms better. So a lot of, say, suggestion, recommendations sounds nice, new. However, if you dig inside that new statement, those statements are fundamentally built on these 6 school of thoughts, you can say, in management. 6 major different thoughts in management business. So based on that one, management studies are progressing. So we just study that fundamental 6 big thoughts. So that's basically the point. So before discussing that one, so why we study management theories? Because this is part of the course, right? Well, yeah, help us to understand the present. Yeah, probably this is the reason why we studied it. But I think it is quite true, right? We only have a very limited experience in managing companies. We only have very, say, we only know very few industries. There are 1,000 different kinds of industries, but we are not really master of those 1,000 different industries. So by studying this one, or by attending, say, business school, night course, or whatever, online lecture, whatever, we can have, say, indirect, say, knowledge and experience, certainly. Because management theory, just like other theories, talking about the real stories and real cases. So it helps us to what's going on, even if we really don't have a real experience. Plus, by studying the management theory, it may give us a new insight about your job. So certainly, it provides us a new ideas. That's why, like, still a lot of, say, management books, business books out there in the bookshops are listed on top of the bestseller, right? Books, right? People try to get a very fresh new insight by reading those books if they are involved in business world. And certainly we can have a clue what's going on outside the world, outside your organization, your world. So, having said that, as I mentioned earlier, there are six major big thoughts in business studies. So that's actually this one. Classical theory, behavior theories, quantitative theory, system theory, contingent theory, and learning organizations. I just list this theory in chronological way. So this is the oldest management theory, and it is progressed like that to the downward to the slide here. So create first, develop to the next stage, and then next stage, and so on. So we are pretty much about theory of learning organization. And yeah, so a lot of companies, global firms, small, large, what size they are, they wish to grow, they wish to make more profit, they wish to win and more profits. How? A lot of advice to them is actually this day based on this one, learning organization. So just so that's why I'm not exactly saying that learning organization is the only core, but a lot of advices these days are pretty much built on the concept of learning organization, right? So having said that, let's look at the classical theory first. So out of these six management theories, the top three, or together as a group, we call them a historical theories, kind of a theory that built long time ago, like more than 100 years ago. And the theory, mostly after the bottom threes, are contemporary theories, which are developed after, say, World War II. So World War I, especially World War II, impact a lot to the field of management. Why? Simply, the World War II, for instance, is like war is about winning the game, right? By using, each country only have a limited resource, but they have to anyway win the war, win the competition. So that process actually creates a lot of nationwide competition each other. So a lot of ideas on that winning competition or winning strategies after the war apply to the company level. So point here is that the historic theories, like first three, mostly like inward looking, right? For you to be a better performing firms, you have to look inside, right? You have to look at the nature of your firms, your employees, efficiency of your workers, employees, and so on. So you have to mostly emphasizing inside the organization, right? Caring employees and so on. However, after the World War II, the pattern and the trend of management theory moved from inward looking to outward looking. So, which means that after the World War, like 1950s, a lot of management theories try to recommend outward looking, which means that not only you as a firm look at inside the organization, but also look at the outside the organization, environment, competitors, government regulations, customers, how outside world is actually changing, which is quite obvious. However, before the World War II 50s, 1950s, what's going on outside the organization was totally out of your strategic concern if you read the history of management. So how we can classify classic approach and contemporary approach. Inside looking and outside, inward looking and outward looking, right? So let's look at, but again, as you see here, classic theories, classic perspective, viewpoints, like viewpoint, perspectives, theories, pretty much saying the same things, right? So classic theories actually developed like 150 years ago, but still it does impact our firm's operations still. That's actually the power of the classic, right? Even if we are actually using a lot of contemporary things, but we just cannot ignore the. If you look at like simply like simply like manufacturing organization firms, car assembly lines, even McDonald's, how they work now simply can be predicted by this one, right? Classic theory. So which means that we cannot totally ignore the suggestion of the classic theory. So rather than looking all this one as say a individual separate say entity rather than seeing them individually, we have to look at them all more like integrated way. So before saying that, do you think that I don't know why the business and management like 경영학과 is like part of 문과 in Korea? It's a kind of subsection of art, but in USA it is subsection of science. I don't know what about in Europe. But the point here is that some people say the management is not really a science, it is an art. A lot of things are pretty much intuition-based argument, not really a scientific, say, calculation, mathematics. That's how some people say. So probably that's why like management, business are now here in Korea part of 문과 art. But I totally disagree that one. The management is actually a mixture of art and science, and it is much more going toward the science. As we here see, business study is now changing to evidence-based management, right? Like a lot of management guru scholars say that, what they say? You cannot manage if you cannot measure. That's actually the big like motto slogan in management study. If you cannot measure, you cannot manage. When you say measure, that means you calculate, you estimate by using mathematics, statistics, data, and so on. You just cannot manage it. That's how management scholars view what management is, right? So not really your experience or intuition play the role here. So which means that, especially this day, we talked about if you read the article of like big data that I gave you. So a lot of management this day, especially evidence-based, data-driven decision-making process, right? Without, say, full support from calculation, statistics, data, you cannot even decide anything. So in that sense, management is really, really a science. In this day, like management studies, when I submit papers or articles, without proposing, say, mathematical framework theories, formula, my paper cannot be simply accepted. So it is now going much more for the science. However, at the end, how you interpret the data, evidence, is pretty much about art. You analyze something scientifically way, however, how you conclude based on that analysis is pretty much an art, because you are in that case, in that stage, requires your, say, experience, gut feeling, or path in the past, and so on. So, yeah, it is mixture of art and science, but more and more the science are very much emphasized in management studies. So, having said that, let's look at the classical theory first. So, classic theory is I think here, the first management theory, right, here. So when you say classic theory, what are really classic theories? So that's the point here. When you say classic theory, there are two specific arguments here: scientific management and administrative management. So you have to make sure to remember these two. Just remember what happens like late 19th century in USA. Right? If you remember or have seen the Chaplin's movie, like black and white movies, you can see Chaplin is working in a factory, right? So all the times, and machine is moving, right? So you can see, you can imagine how people actually work there. Again, the question of big firm at the time and the question of big firm this time are pretty much the same. The company tried to maximize their market share, profit more, and so on. But how can they do that? Different. In that time, like in the very old, like 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, in order for you to produce more, making more profit, what you can do, what your firm can do is hiring more people. That was their solution. So do you think that is this making sense to you? By hiring more people or hiring more employees, you can produce more. Do you think this makes sense? It doesn't make sense, actually. There is kind of a diminishing return of scale, right? If you put more resource, you can produce more and more, but beyond certain point, no matter how you put more resource, your productions just remain the same, right? That's the actual concern. So beyond certain point, your firm try to produce more, but simply you cannot do it. Even if you hire more people, even if you set up more factories, lines, and so on. So companies wonder why and how to overcome that problem. So that was actually lots of question at the time. Somewhere late 19th century, right? So scientific management and administrative management actually gave the solution for that problem. So that's how these two theories are so important at the time and still very important now, right? Let's look at the scientific management first. Frederick Taylor is actually the, simply say, the founder of scientific management. He, let's have a break and then talk about Taylor's scientific management. Just imagine his ideas of these four actually changed the world and changed America. And some people say that USA become #1 in the world by the help of this Taylor. So that's why we put Taylorism, right? So he is so important figure in helping USA companies. So so people of USA put some ideology to his name. So we call them like his idea as a Taylorism. The point is, there is a huge academic group in USA like Taylorism Society. So a group of Taylor supporter scholars still even today get together, study more, try to think about advance the Taylor's these four ideas. So let's talk about that one after the break. Okay. The Frederick Taylor was like the kind of a say Bill Gates-like person. So drop out, like he lived like more than 100 years ago. Drop out from the Harvard University. Simply he believed that I have nothing to learn from this university, right? So he just dropped out, and what he found was that the world is in chaos. I mean, he is actually a member of a very rich family, so no need to worry about his living, right? How to make a living and so on. So on the other hand, he just since he don't need to worry about his living, so we look at more like world outside. Like he observed that the world is chaos. Lots of people, especially the poor people, actually working 24 hours. And basically at the time, 19 hours per day by receiving, say, 50 cents per day. A lot of working, but their life is just never got better. And also the company never performed better. So everything is like altogether going bad. So just Frederick Taylor just wondered what's the problem? Why all of the people, company work so hard, but their standard of living just keep worse and worse. And Taylor suddenly determined to be like, it is my destiny, right, to save the world. Right? So what he did was that he worked for. He got the job at the say some very manufacturing companies, and as a like the person at the bottom, like technical core, what you call, just like ordinary workers, and work as a kind of a very low employees, low earning employees there, and just figure out what's the problem. What's the problem of the workers? What's the problem of the companies? Why a lot of people working so hard, but nobody got better. Company didn't actually receive better performance. So that's actually he found out two things. First, no matter how hard you work, you never receive more. Quite obvious, right? This day. But at the time, there's no such things like incentive. If you say this day, if you work more, if you perform better, you receive more. That's quite common sense this day, but no such concept in that more than 100 years ago. So workers look like work hard, but not really concentrating on their job because they knew that if they work more, then they are asked to do more without paying more. So that's why workers not really working hard. That's what he found from the factory he worked. And the second thing was that even though you just try to work hard, you just simply don't know how. Simply say, no guideline. That's what he found. So that's how he started work there. To solve those two problems will be curing everybody. So that's how he found from here real experience. Quite very obvious, however very brilliant finding. If you imagine the world at the time. So what he did was, basically his background was engineer, so he's very good at mathematics, calculation, and so on. So what he found was that this four, you have to memorize this one. So evaluate a task scientifically, like time and motion study. He thought that every, say, working or process job consists of best motion. Right? If you say golfer or pitcher in baseball, a lot of, say, players that have their own posture or gesture, whatever. However, we can define that there are the best posture for particular, say, sports, right? Likewise, he thought that there should be a very best posture, motion for a particular job, and figure out what it is. So that's what he did. And he also figured out if you follow that motion in that particular job for, say, 1 minute, then he can calculate, he calculated then how many items, how many products you can actually produce per minute, per hour, per day, right? Simply say if you are working, say, in car companies making this component or, say, tire or engine, and he figure out what is the best posture for making that engine. And if you, say, master that posture for certain, say, an hour or a day, then you can produce, say, 10 engines per day. So that's how. That's what we mean by here, evaluating a task scientifically. So actually, he helped firm to calculate how many, say, a worker can produce per day if that workers follow a particular, say, simply say, motion and posture, simply say, or manuals, what he call. So he basically designed manuals for a particular job, for each stage of jobs. But at the same time, I mean, the thing is that the industry at the time was quite simple. Like lots of industry at the time was pretty much manufacturing. So defining like motion, posture is quite simple, right? There's no IT making at the time. There's no like mobile phone making at the time. All of the manufacturing at the time was like car, basically. And the second job he did was that in order for you to do that, say, job, you require this or that particular skills, right? So say if you are shorter than, say, 1.70 meters, that much height, or if you are not heavier that much weight, then you are not possible for doing that job. Right? So simply what he did was that what kind of your, say, physical ability or skills are required for doing a particular jobs. That's what it did at the time. So each task requires specific physical skills, intelligence skills, and so on. So simply means that if you define this one, then you don't need to hire, say, the old people, right? Or say 10-year boy or 10-year girls. At the time, the employees, the company CEO hire everybody, regardless of their, say, say physical condition or whatever. So simply hiring without asking anything was actually general practice. However, by defining the ability or skills, you are now, you as a firm could be very selective to choose the best person for that particular job, right? And since 1 and 2 are realized, then you can actually train employees. So number 1 and 2 is like you prepare manuals. So that means based on that manuals, you can actually train for new employees. Right? So very brilliant findings, actually. Without manuals, you just cannot train them. Right? If you train them, then probably that workers can actually work better. Right? So providing training was a brilliant finding at the time by Taylor. And incentives. As I told you, like if you have particular levels of ability doing particular motion for particular job, then you are actually able to produce, say, 10 items per hour, right? So if you are lucky enough to produce more than 10, I will pay you more. So incentive. So he is kind of a person who introduced incentive for the first time. So based on 1, 2, 3, company, especially the top management, can plan their new process. Right? So if you are familiar from of 1 to 3, then no matter what new process of working or say making, you can design a new way of 1, 2, 3 for new say, manufacturing. Right? So that's pretty much the ideas of Taylorism. So as I mentioned, like a lot of, say, company service, like McDonald's, for instance, if you hire, say, part-time employees, for instance, how are you evaluate their performance? How are you provide like training? How are you, say, evaluate define what skills, ability are required for the McDonald's shop? So, what actually McDonald's did for the restaurants are pretty much still following the ideas of Taylor's, like Hyundai Motor, and lots of other, say, any kinds of manufacturing firms. Fundamentally, their manufacturings are pretty much based on 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So that's how he. So actually, he created these ideas and he applied these ideas to Chrysler, I think. So at the time, at the beginning of 1910 or something, the price of a car. T-car was about $900. So imagine like 900 at the time, so expensive. So however, by adopting this one from Chrysler, they can produce more cars, right? So by producing more cars means that reducing the price, right? That's the economies of scale. So because of the Taylor's ideas here, the price of US car dropped from 900 to 120. Huge drop, right? So price drop means that much, means a lot more production, right? So finally, more production were possible. So that's how some people say that USA, by the turn of 20th century, were catch up and overcome UK. Right? Mass production, they finally did. More production, more return to workers, giving more wealth. So the nations of wealth of nation enlarged, expanded more and more. So that's how Taylor actually contribute to the people there. But it started to have a problem here. Right? So all of the firms actually follow this practice. Right? That means once you are hired, what you do is learn manuals equipped with this kind of abilities, skills required by the firms, work hard to get more incentives. So, which means that to be a better firms, let employees master of these principles. That's the management theory. So all of the firms, if you wish to make more profit, big, successful, just follow master 1, 2, 3, 4. However, problems start to come, and that problem become visible by a great person here, what you call where is Mayo? This guy. Elton Mayo was actually professor of Harvard, and actually the follower, strong supporter of, say, Taylorism, who really developed more and more, like preacher of Taylorism. But a brilliant finding of from his experiment at Chicago changed his philosophy and so on. So he became, say, anti-Taylorism because of his study, what he called a Hawthorne effect. Actually, what he did was that, very simple, it was an experiment. His experiment was this one. 2 working group here. So group A, group B. So workers are working here. The study was this. The experiment was part of the Taylorism. To support Taylorism more, he started this experiment. The quality of employees are exactly the same. Their jobs are exactly the same. The only difference are working condition. So the group B actually working at the very good working environment, and group A here working the same thing, doing the same job at very bad working environment. So his job is just try to compare who performed better at the end. So working good here means that who exactly follow by the Taylorism's principles. So what he expects from this experiment was that B at the end performed better than A, right? So before you actually start experiment, you always estimate what would be the possible outcome. But at the end of after this experiment, what he found was that group A performed better. So what does this mean? In order for you to perform better, you let workers work in a bad condition, right? Is it making sense? Not really. So this experiment was quite strange. How come then employees work in a bad condition perform better? That is actually what it found. So he just tried again of this test, right? Within the same factory, and he actually ended up with the same result. People in a bad working conditions keep performing better and better. At the end, he found that this group performed better because manager care these people more. Right? So this is an experiment, so there should be no contamination here, only except the working condition. But the manager of this firm didn't know what's going on. The professor Mayo didn't quite explain the purpose of this study, what the manager found was that this group of people work in a very poor condition, and these people working, workers are working in a very bad condition. So secretly, the manager gave a special care to them. More food, right? More, say, caring, more allowing more, say, communication each other. I mean, in Taylorism, what you need to do here by following this principle, what you need to do is just keep working. You don't need to like communication each other. You just position yourself and just working 24 hours. That's it. That's what Taylorism. But here, since they are just working in a very poor condition, so the manager, the CEO, gave a special care. So that gave them kind of an encouragement, which led them to perform better, more. So his conclusion was, even if, say, group of workers are mastered or of the Taylorism, that doesn't necessarily all the time improve or help the firm perform better. Right? Caring people, more communication each other, work more, right? More important than scientific management if you really, really want to, say, improve your firms. That's what we call a Hawthorne effect. So after Mayo, Hawthorne is kind of a name of the factory behind, somewhere near to Chicago. So after he ended up with this conclusion, he strongly argued that it is not really a scientific management to improve your firm's performance. It is people management, caring people more, that really matters if you really build better companies. So that's what we call behavioral perspectives, right? Rather than scientific management, caring, giving encouragements to people, employees are actually working effective more in building better companies. So this one is quite opposite view each other's. So let me finish here. So quantitative viewpoint is actually who are against this one. So I mean, this is fine, quite right, and behavior perspective is actually another point. Like by giving more caring encouragement, by treating people like real humans, more important to build better companies. But the quantitative perspective theory say that this kind of recommendation is too romantic. Like treating people well, help you to build better companies, right? So it's very romantic recommendation. If that's true, then just hiring monk or priest as your CEO, right? Then you can be better, best companies. So quantitative theory is kind of another, say, opposite view on the behavior perspective. So quantitative perspective is that just forget about scientific management, measuring things or whatever. Just forget about treating people nice and so on. What matters is measure. Right? So a lot of management scholars really adopt mathematics in business study, starting from here, right? What you measure is what you get, right? So let's talk about the quantitative perspective Thursday. Right? So the point is that something happened, and then another one happened in opposite view of the previous one, and then another one happened created by antagonizing or by refuting the previous one. So that's how all theories are actually progress. Right? So let's talk about the quantitative perspective on Thursday. Okay. Okay, so if you form the group project, if you prefer group projects for 5 students together, please let me know or inform me through my email.